Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 worst things that ever happened to SpongeBob SquarePants.
You'll get this star back when you earn it.
For this list, we're looking at the most painful, embarrassing, and hurtful experiences SpongeBob has ever had. What do you think is the worst thing to ever happen to the beloved sponge? Let us know in the comments. Number 20, breaking his butt. SpongeBob really should have listened to Sandy and been more vigilant while sandboarding.
Don't worry, guys. Everything's under control, because I'm invincible!
He goes over to a cliff and breaks his bottom when he lands on it. Ouch. After having it glued back together like some bizarre puzzle, the prospect of possibly being put into the iron butt leads SpongeBob to becoming scared of getting hurt again.
One more injury like that, and you could wind up like that poor creature there, in the iron butt.
Oh man, it itches.
He grows so scared, in fact, that he sees danger everywhere he goes and isolates himself at home. At least he makes some new unlikely friends to share his time with. It's hard not to feel for him. The injury itself is bad enough, and the psychological consequences end up temporarily being devastating. Number 19, getting yelled at. SpongeBob traverses the desert, braves a tornado, and worst of all, survives Squidward's relentless negativity, all to deliver the first and presumably last ever Krusty Krab pizza.
The Krusty Krab pizza is the pizza for you and me. The Krusty Krab pizza is the pizza.
And my feet are killing me.
When a customer calls to have a pizza delivered, Mr. Krabs decides that his dining establishment now provides that service and menu item. But SpongeBob and Squidward's wayward journey is all for naught when the customer freaks out at our favorite yellow sponge for supposedly forgetting his drink.
Where's my drink?
What drink?
My drink? My Diet Dr. Kelp? Don't tell me you forgot my drink!
But you didn't order any.
How am I supposed to eat this pizza without my drink?
Oh, the ingratitude. Seeing SpongeBob sob uncontrollably breaks our hearts. He hasn't done anything to deserve this, especially considering the effort he put into completing the delivery in the first place. At least some good comes out of the ordeal when Squidward shows the guy what's up.
Look, I told your little friend I ain't paying for that!
Well, this one's on the...
Number 18, getting fired from the Krusty Krab.
SpongeBob loves his job at the Krusty Krab, but one day, the unthinkable happens. Mr. Krabs fires him just so that the greedy crustacean would save a measly nickel.
You know I love you like a son, but you can't argue with a nickel.
But.
SpongeBob goes into a depression before finally attempting to get back out there, only to get harshly rejected by other restaurants for only being able to produce burgers.
That is, until they decide they want him back and forcefully take him.
My customers love your little sliders. Now get to work!
I'm pretty sure this is illegal.
The only other times SpongeBob has been fired were for more legitimate reasons, but the reasoning for this termination is just absurd. Even when he does get his job back, it feels unsatisfying knowing how poorly Krabs can treat what is arguably his best employee. Not that SpongeBob seems to mind.
All right! Now my life has purpose again!
Number 17, his horrible insomnia.
Well, what about sleep, young man? Did you get enough sleep?
I did go to bed 2 minutes later than usual.
That's it! You're an insomniac!
Cheap old Mr. Krabs snaps at SpongeBob for using a little too much mustard on a Krabby Patty and accuses the fry cook of not getting enough sleep. This frightens poor SpongeBob until he actually can't sleep, and when he asks Patrick to help, the bloated starfish only makes it worse.
What kind of a bedtime story was that anyway?
It's called The Land of Perpetual Excitement. You know, it's a get-out-of-bed story.
Patrick, I'm trying to go to sleep.
Oh.
After a horrific night of hallucinating, he comes back into work exhausted and unable to beat his newfound insomnia. SpongeBob was perfectly fine until Krabs got into his head. It makes you wonder who's more likely to jeopardize the Krusty Krab, a slightly tired SpongeBob, or a stingy tightwad who overreacts to a minor inconvenience and scares his employees sleepless.
I tried. I really tried. But my insomnia got the best of me.
Now he's crying away me mustard.
Number 16, Krabby Land. SpongeBob has repeatedly proven that he'll do anything for work. When Mr. Krabs opens a disastrously unsafe play attraction to get the kids to the Krusty Krab, the little ones aren't impressed until he mentions Krabby the Clown.
We want Krabby! We want Krabby!
So Krabs has SpongeBob entertain them until it's time for the central act. Unfortunately, the only thing the children enjoy is when SpongeBob hurts himself. None of us would blame him if he didn't engage. This can't be part of his job description. But in true SpongeBob fashion, he goes all in, only to realize that Mr. Krabs has no plan and puts on a poor performance as the clown.
Thank you all for coming! Thank you! Eat plenty of Krabby Patties!
Poor Sponge. He gives his blood, sweat, and tears for his career and isn't appreciated for it. Number 15. Gummy.
SpongeBob and Patrick are celebrating Best Friends Day, and Patrick gives SpongeBob his most beloved possession, a giant wad of used chewing gum, affectionately named Gummy. A touching gesture, except that the ball is a foul-smelling eyesore, and apparently other poor citizens were trapped in its gooey center.
Oh, thank Neptune! Hey guys, I found a way out! Come on!
Unfortunately, SpongeBob becomes Gummy's next ensnared victim as the gum covers his entire house, and no one is safe from its sticky grasp. On top of that, when Patrick sees everyone tangled in this mess, all he can think of is how much fun they're all having with his Gummy. Yeah, because nothing says friendship like letting your best friend get forcefully entrapped by moldy gum.
How would you like your gummy back?
Yes!
It's yours, buddy. But first you gotta get us out of this.
That's easy.
Number 14. Squidward reading his diaries.
SpongeBob's grumpy neighbor isn't typically a great friend, but this is bad even for him.
If I hear the Bikini Bottom municipal anthem, I can't help but take off all my clothes and dance around in my underwear.
Squidward gets a hold of SpongeBob's diary and reads it aloud to the customers, who don't even try to stop him, and then turns the fry cook's more embarrassing secrets into a humiliating spectacle.
My diary!
Squidward!
I'll get you!
SpongeBob runs out in tears, but rather than apologize, half of Bikini Bottom goes out of its way to shame and antagonize Squidward to ease their own guilt, because hypocrisy is always the way to go. Sadly, SpongeBob's the only one to take the high road and forgive his grumpy neighbor, until Squidward reads his second diary, relishing in SpongeBob's sorrow while being pelted with tomatoes by angry hypocrites.
Squidward! I'll get you!
Number 13. House eaten by nematodes. Your place of residence being destroyed is devastating under any circumstance. And SpongeBob's pineapple house is iconic, making it sting a little extra when he loses it. While he and Gary are sound asleep without a worry in the world, a slew of nematodes invade Bikini Bottom. Soon, they devour the home around our Sponge and his pet, leaving them without a place to live.
Oh, nematodes.
Talk about pure bad luck. They try staying with Patrick and even Squidward, though those arrangements don't work out so well. Thankfully, SpongeBob gets his house back in the end, but we could all feel his sorrow when he thought he would have to leave Bikini Bottom. Number 12. La Spatula.
At the Krusty Krab, a customer orders a monster Krabby Patty, but it proves too much for SpongeBob as he breaks his beloved spatula.
1, 2, 3!
SpongeBob must reluctantly find a replacement spatula and comes across the technologically advanced and stupidly overpriced La Spatula.
Looks fancy. So shiny. Oh, those lines, so sleek. What am I talking about? I don't need this. Maybe I do need this.
He ends up selling his whole house and his clothes to buy La Spatula, only for the sentient tool to rudely leave SpongeBob in the dust. This was obviously a lesson about not falling for all the glitters, but this was needlessly cruel to have SpongeBob literally give up everything for a useless, snobby, glorified cooking device. Thankfully, in the end, SpongeBob is happily reunited with his loyal one true spatula.
Spatula? You're back!
Number 11. Attacked from the inside. Mermaid Man accidentally leaves his belt behind at the Krusty Krab, and SpongeBob gets a little trigger happy with it.
There you go. Come again, sir.
SpongeBob, what's going on in here?
It isn't long before he shrinks every Bikini Bottom resident, paranoid they'll get him in trouble with Mermaid Man. When the townspeople realize that nobody knows how to unshrink them, they revolt in a major way. Indeed, they crawl into SpongeBob's body through his pores and attack him from the inside. Admittedly, SpongeBob brought this one on himself a bit, but we can't help but feel this might have been a bit of an overreaction. Getting hurt from within like that is just brutal.
We've been shrinking for years! But this is ridiculous.
Number 10. The Suds. Oh no, SpongeBob has got the suds, but never fear, Dr. Patrick is here. Actually, SpongeBob should have feared Dr. Patrick a lot. Being too sick to stay at work is bad enough given how much our yellow friend loves his job. But essentially being experimented on just makes everything worse.
It appears as though we'll have to plug up these holes. This ought to do the trick.
Patrick scares SpongeBob out of seeing a real medical professional and takes over his care, with disastrous consequences. The starfish clogs up all of SpongeBob's pores in order to keep the suds in, but that's obviously a bad idea. Our guy practically explodes after all that buildup. How much suffering can one sponge take? Number 9. Getting lost in rock bottom. Anyone who's ever gotten turned around on public transportation in an unfamiliar place can probably attest to how scary it is to find yourself lost all alone.
Patrick, I think we're on the wrong...
SpongeBob and Patrick accidentally get on the wrong bus on the way home from the theme park and find themselves in a town called Rock Bottom. The name of the place alone should tell you how terrifying the ordeal is. SpongeBob is abandoned by Patrick, misses several buses, and has to wait in that never-ending line with all those unfamiliar creatures, not knowing if or when he'll make it home.
I am 329th in line, and nobody forget it.
Of course, he eventually does, but that doesn't make this any less traumatic. Number 8. SpongeBob No Pants.
Yo-ho, yo-ho! Near the hooks, I'll never go.
Yo-ho, yo-ho! Near the hooks, we'll never go.
Mr. Krabs warns everyone about the invading fisherman hooks. SpongeBob tries to heed his boss's warnings, but the temptation to play on the hooks, made worse by Patrick's prodding, is too strong for our little fry cook, and he ends up getting his pants hooked.
Glad I got that out of my system. Oh! I'm hooked! And that means...
In danger of being dragged up to the surface, SpongeBob has no choice but to strip naked, in front of a group of teenage girls. It turns out that Mr. Krabs set up this particular hook to scare SpongeBob straight, and while he definitely needed to learn his lesson, it was still a little mean to publicly humiliate the little guy like this.
Oh, look!
It's SpongeBob Nudie Pants!
Number 7. Not having access to water. He needed it. When SpongeBob first meets Sandy, she invites him over, but she doesn't realize that he needs water to live, and he can't bring himself to confess that he can't breathe in the air.
That's how I like my air.
He tries to hold out, with Patrick encouraging him outside the dome, but he's suffering more than any person or sponge ever should. The only positive might be that this gave us one of the show's most quoted moments.
I need it!
No, SpongeBob! No, no, no! Stop!
No amount of pinkies up or other kinds of fanciness can help SpongeBob out of this one. He and Patrick, who comes in trying to help, eventually dry up completely before Sandy saves the day. Yikes. To say this was a horrifying near-death experience would be an understatement. Number 6. Squidward's prank. After an initial April Fool's Day prank, SpongeBob vows to leave Squidward alone and starts playing jokes on the customers instead.
April Fools!
Oh.
They laugh, he laughs, but the octopus can't take all the joy and decides to ruin the poor guy's favorite holiday. SpongeBob isn't even bothering him anymore, but he still pulls a really mean prank on the fry cook in front of the whole establishment. He tricks SpongeBob into a trap he's laid out, sending the sponge all around the Krusty Krab. Our guy flies into the walls, gets dragged under a customer's butt, slams into the ceiling, and winds up in the trash, while Squidward cackles and celebrates. Nobody deserves treatment like that.
Oops. April Fools, you little sausage!
Number 5. Getting stuck in the ringer.
This is not going well.
After taking a shower, SpongeBob accidentally gets lodged in his ringer, and Patrick, the best friend, stupidly makes it worse with forever glue.
There you go, buddy. Now you're stuck forever.
Gee, thanks, Patrick. Now I'm stuck forever.
Unable to work, SpongeBob is treated to a day out by his pink pal, which mostly consists of Patrick having fun while SpongeBob suffers because of his condition. He finally blows his stack and rightfully calls Patrick out for his blundering, but the townsfolk shame him for yelling at his so-called friend.
You know, kid, your body isn't the problem. It's your heart. Huh? Aww. You deserve what you've gotten. Come on, we're out of here.
How is it fair to call SpongeBob the bad guy for standing up for himself, especially since this was literally all Patrick's fault? These two may be best buddies, but moments like this make us wonder why.
Number 4. The Splinter.
Oh, you really saved me!
At work, SpongeBob gets a nasty splinter jammed in his thumb. Not only is it extremely painful, but it can't be removed without graphically ripping off his own skin. When Squidward scares him into thinking he'll be sent home due to his injury, SpongeBob desperately seeks help from Dr. Patrick, who only makes the affliction worse than it already was.
There appears to be a little bit of swelling. This garbage compress should help that go down. That doesn't look good.
Not only is the episode needlessly graphic, but it's extremely uncomfortable to watch our absorbent protagonist suffer a gruesome injury and the paranoia of leaving work early, while two of his friends do absolutely nothing to help him. Even the removal of the splinter leaves a disgusting taste in our mouths.
Number 3. Being sold. By now we know that SpongeBob always gives his all to his job, no matter how terrible Squidward or Mr. Krabs are to him. When the Flying Dutchman threatens to take Mr. Krabs to Davy Jones' locker for his horrendous cheapness, SpongeBob has his employer's back.
This Mr. Krabs is the most generous, big-hearted, non-skin-flinted crab in the whole sea.
But though he defends his boss, Krabs wastes no time letting him down by trading him for every penny the Dutchman has on him, which is only 62 cents, by the way. The greedy crab condemns his best worker to spend an eternity suffering for less than $1.
You think I could have gotten more?
Even Squidward doesn't like that one. Number 2. Snail Plasma.
Now you won't forget my instructions, will you?
I have the memory of an elephant. I'll take good care of Fred.
Gary!
Right, right.
SpongeBob goes out of town for the weekend and leaves Squidward to look after Gary, only to return home and find his snail pal neglected and sick. When they call a doctor, Squidward accidentally injects SpongeBob with Snail Plasma, while Gary makes a full recovery. SpongeBob undergoes a painfully hideous transformation into a snail, not unlike the iconic An American Werewolf in London scene.
Ah! Gary, I'm fine. See?
This is even worse than the later episode where Gary runs away. At least that has a happy ending. But here, SpongeBob is forced to endure the consequences of Squidward's carelessness when all he wanted was a fun weekend away. Thankfully, Squidward gets rightfully punished at the end.
Meow, 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 meow.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. National No SpongeBob Day.
Where did everybody go?
Everyone in Bikini Bottom has mysteriously vanished, leaving SpongeBob all alone. After weeks filled with paranoia and loneliness, we finally find out what became of the townsfolk. It turns out they were off celebrating National No SpongeBob Day, a whole day dedicated to getting away from him.
A whole day dedicated to getting away from you.
A day? But you guys have been away for weeks.
Yeah, well, we kind of milked it a little.
That's right. They created a whole holiday with the sole purpose of avoiding their poorest friend and having fun at his expense. Even Patrick took part.
Everybody needs at least one day away from...
Well, glad you had fun.
We get it. SpongeBob can be tiresome, but this is just too much, and making him feel flattered about it doesn't make it any better.
Wow! A whole day dedicated to me.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.